Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Dave Parker. I'm a host on Turner Classic Movies, and what a pleasure it is for me to introduce to you Screen Actors Guild Award and Academy Award nominee, Monica Barbaro. Hi. Oh, we have lights. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going, everybody?
Thank you for staying.
Who just saw it for the first time?
Oh, wow, cool.
Who's seen it 3 or more times? Wow. You have good taste. Okay, Monica, tell me and the audience, what day is it today? Monday. What did you do
I thought that was the first question. I was like,
No,
I don't know.
I don't know either. What did you do 2 nights ago on Saturday night?
I met Joan Baez in person. She had a concert in San Francisco, and I was doing everything in my power to get back for it. And I made it back from London in time to go meet her. Crazy.
What can you tell us about what it was like? I'm sure you didn't have a ton of time, but what was it like to meet her after going through this whole experience?
We didn't have a ton of time, but she also was like really understanding of, she was like, you must be tired. I was like, wow, that's really...
From life?
Yeah. This was like a whole, concert for her, a tribute concert, and she sang Diamonds and Rust, and I just was so amazed that she had the wherewithal to like have any concern for my well-being. I was like, wow, that's wild. She was so lovely, and we've been in touch. She left me a voicemail after she saw the movie, and like we've been texting and stuff. I feel very protective of things she's said to me, so when people are like, well, what did she think? I'm like, she's a public person. She can tell you if she wants to, but I'm not gonna like,
Did it make you happy what she said on the voicemail?
Yeah, oh yeah. Fully cried and was just like absolutely floored by her. She said really supportive things, and not just about my performance, but about Timmy as Bob and Ed. Like specifically, she just said they're incredible in the film, and and so I played it for Ed. We got a chance for me to play it for him, the voicemail, and they spoke while we were working on the movie. So he has a bit of a relationship with her, and so that just was like, that was the best.
I can only imagine what that must feel like. I've heard Timothy say in several interviews that for various reasons, because of the pandemic, because of different strikes, this was a role that he was able to prepare for I think like 5 years, just because of the movie getting pushed and pushed. How long of a process was it for you? I imagine it wasn't that long, like 5 years, but how long was it when you got involved?
Well, I will say about him too, he keeps saying it 5 years, but he also filmed like a couple of Dune movies. He filmed Wonka, which was a whole feat in and of itself.
He wasn't just hanging out.
Yeah, he wasn't like just focusing on, it was really committed, and he brought his guitar everywhere, but I also just like find it amazing what he was able to do in 5 years, as busy as he's been. But I auditioned first in 2020. But the movie, it was one of those things where I was supposed to meet Jim the next week. I was like, oh, they really liked your audition. You'll meet Jim next week. But there's this like pandemic thing. It'll probably be over in 2 weeks. And as we all know, it wasn't. And so people went off and did different projects. The movie kind of maybe almost fell apart. And I just had Joan in the back of my head the whole time. And he didn't give me the role until 2023. We had a meeting, and then I booked the part, and then it was like, oh, and now you have 5 months, and I was like, you could have told me before. I just like overhauled my entire life and was like, okay, I got to learn how to sing, I got to learn how to play guitar, and then the strikes happened, and we weren't allowed to train with our coaches, of which I had a few wonderful coaches along the way. But we had to just sort of like solo take on the training during that time. and that's when I started playing and singing sort of at the same time. And then there were like a few months more, and by the time I filmed the movie, it was like almost a year that I had to learn to sing and play.
So full disclosure, Monica and I did an interview last night at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, but it was very quick. But I was asking you what your singing background was, and I honestly didn't know the answer. And if you had told me last night, like, oh yeah, sang a lot in high school and sang, done gigs here and there, I would have been like, sure, that makes total sense. You just had to like change it up a little bit to make it sound more like Joan Baez. And you were like, no, really didn't sing much at all until like got this part. But now that I have a little bit more time with you, how did you even know that you could do it?
I mean, I sang like at home.
Right.
I think I was like that. I think I was maybe bold enough of an actor to. I feel like I auditioned for things along the way where I'd sing, or in acting class you'd sing a little ditty and people were like, nice voice. And you're like, oh, okay, but like you don't really take it seriously. And I think I was just sort of I don't know, going for it with the audition, because I sang for the audition. And I knew I could like sing on key, but I just, I don't know, I guess like this has been that learning experience. People have been really kind to me about my voice, and that's been lovely. But it terrified me throughout, because I felt like I would appear very much as a fraud, particularly portraying Joan, whose voice is so well known and so beautiful and written about and adored. And at that concert on Saturday, it was like Linda Ronstadt and Bonnie Wright being like, I became a singer because of Joan. And I was like, I'm glad I didn't see this before the movie. So the big shoes to fill, and just was like terrified every single day.
Are you able, now that it's over, are you able to listen just to your audio recordings? Did you ever, no?
No, I'm like the worst person to watch this film with, because I can't hear. You try so hard to get something so exact that like it just becomes hard not to hear where you didn't achieve that. Like there are bits and pieces where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, she's close. But like I'm so obsessed with Joan's voice that like it's not, but that's kind of like when you do comedy, it's like, it's not for you, the laughs aren't for you, the pain or the whatever your character is experiencing in extreme is your process, and the audience gets to laugh. And I feel a little bit that way about the singing. Like it was for me to be tortured over, and like hopefully for other people to enjoy.
Did y'all enjoy it?
Thank
you.
Now I'm really fishing.
I was doing the fishing for you. So I'd be curious to know, obviously it sounds like you've become fully obsessed with her and had become fully obsessed with her while you were filming and even beforehand. Was there like a piece of footage or a story or a fact or something that you encountered or found or learned about her that was particularly helpful for you to unlock the performance?
I mean, she's so open about herself. She's written memoirs, she speaks out in documentaries. Like she's just, I think the folk music genre attracted people who were really authentic and honest about themselves. So it's a little bit, I guess, chicken or the egg on that. It's a music form that is about authenticity, when at the time in the world, like especially in America, they were trying to sort of like cover up and heal after World War II, and just sort of like push commercialism in kids' faces. And then these kids are in their early 20s like, this doesn't make any sense, and there's so much like collective trauma that I think they were trying to like express something about. And so she just has that about her. She's just really honest still in concert, just like she tells it like it is. I love it. And so she just, there was just a wealth of information about her, and not the kind of thing where like she was just trying to flatter herself or make herself sound like she was a better person than she is. She's very honest about her, about things that she's not as proud of. So I had so many resources. I think what really helped me was there was a New Yorker article that came out while I was working on this, because she released a book of her drawings and her poetry. And she said in the article, it was about like not perfecting the artwork, because as soon as you're trying to perfect it, you essentially like you rob it of what makes it interesting. And that became sort of like my motto in this, because the last thing I wanted to do in my obsession over her and my, perfectionism and trying to get her like exact and right and all the stuff I've been talking about in terms of her voice and that obsession. The last thing I wanted to do was rob her of what makes her so interesting, and just that like magnetic essence that she has and spirit. And so I used, that was like just kind of a belief structure I tried to inhabit when I would get overwhelmed trying to like get her so right.
Since I know there's a lot of actors in this audience tonight, I find it really interesting, James Mangold, the director's decision to make sure I'm getting this right, to not have you and some of the other actors.
Oh, this is a SAG panel, right?
Yes, yeah. So you.
Sorry, I was just like, ooh.
This is your people.
We've done a lot of these. You will all someday be in this position going, oh yeah, I know why she didn't know where she was.
Because there's been a lot, is basically the answer.
Yeah.
But you were telling me last night, make sure I'm getting it right, that you, like in Timothy, for instance, you didn't really even get to know him or even really meet him until soon before the shooting was to begin. And it was almost like you guys were in character, not 100%,
yeah.
But that's how it worked out. Are you happy it worked out that way? Did you ever dispute decisions like that, where you're like, I don't really think that's necessary? Or were you just on board with what Jim Mangold wanted to do?
It was all of us that wanted to do that. I mean, I was pretty intimidated in this situation. I mean, I really admired Timmy's work, we all know it. And James is an incredible director, and so I felt I had a lot to prove, and I wanted to be musically proficient by the time I got there, and like so I had something to show for myself, because I think it can be easy to feel sort of like your resume doesn't stack up in a situation like this, and so I wanted to be really ready, and so I was like grateful for the time. I think like sometimes it was a little bit, it was hard because it was at times a very lonely process, like as opposed to Top Gun, where we all got to go to like flight school together and we bonded over all of our, all of the lessons learned on that one. This was like very siloed in a way, and yet once we got there, it was like, I remember sitting with Boyd and talking about like, I was like, oh, like what's Johnny's thing? Like, how does he play guitar? And he was telling me about this like specific technique that Johnny does, and it was actually really cool to kind of all meet as musicians, and that, like you said, like felt more. That was more accurate, or like more true to the way these musicians actually met. They trained in their own lives. They turned out to be musicians and then met each other sort of like along the way and in admiration of each other's music abilities. And so those parallels were there, and that was nice. And then like festivals too.
Do you mind?
They were like, that's enough. The festivals too sort of felt like what I think maybe festivals might have felt like, where like we're there all day, we're like, I'm running around barefoot, it's like a mess, and we're doing these long series of performances together, and we have time backstage, and like it felt I think, truer to like, oh yeah, they might have become friends at this festival because they had, you know, that time on their hands. I think it's interesting, like in the ensemble sense, that we get a lot of questions that I think like there's a bit of this like glorification maybe of like an ensemble, meaning that a cast is like, that they're all best friends. And I think that's like a really nice thing to have, and it's, it can be a great sort of like publicity thing to run with, but I think it's also, I was just so amazed by like each individual's work and getting to experience like coming to set and looking around and being like, oh, you dedicated your own time, you isolated yourself to become, for instance, Johnny Cash, or Ed Norton worked for 2 months to get.
Right, because Edward Norton was almost a last-minute replacement for, I think, Benedict Cumberbatch or someone who wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
So he came in like last minute. And just
I thought the movie would
nailed
be
it.
derailed. I couldn't imagine what actor of that caliber would like take on a role with only 2 months to prepare, and he crushed it. He's incredible in this movie. 100%. So deserving of applause. He completely transforms in this role, like nothing I've seen him do. Yeah, just to like meet each other in that way, for me, I just felt like I was just more than ever in my life, like stepping into big leagues. I was like, oh, everyone really prepared their character and they're showing up with all this work having been done. And that, you know, we've become friends on the press tour. Like that's where the fun happens.
Now you know them as people as opposed to as Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan. Like you know Edward and Timothy now.
Yeah, totally.
For someone like me who, like, as recently as last night has had the recurring dream about I'm back in school and I didn't go to class the whole semester and it's the end of the semester and the test and I like, am I gonna know what to do? If you had a number of months to learn to be proficient in guitar and singing, how did you calibrate it so that you were like, okay, it's 2 months in, I know I'm on track? I mean, or were you stressing out about, I'm not far enough along at this point to be ready for when I'm on the set? How did you know that you were progressing at the right rate?
I was stressing pretty much every minute of every day for this film, in the best way, like in the way that I crave the work to be. I think it's a very common experience. Like acting is the greatest career you could possibly have, like, and aren't we so lucky to get to call ourselves actors? There's also a lot of work out there that is fully legitimate and like pay those bills, but like it doesn't feed that thing inside that like is why we got into this. And I think I've found that often it's the more stressful jobs that do fulfill that thing. I mean, you can have a lot of fun on all kinds of sets, but like I think we're like a little bit into a certain kind of emotional torture, in the best way. Again, in that way of like a comedy, it's for the audience to enjoy, but like we're discovering something deeper and, you know, more intense. And so, yeah, I mean, I was stressed constantly, for all kinds of reasons. The cast, the director, just everyone being great, Joan being great.
And alive.
The knowing that I would have to perform live, yeah. The skill set I needed to develop. But I guess like if I were to ever explain this to someone who was about to go through the process, what helped me was just there was specific work to do every day. It's sort of like memorizing something where you're like, the first few times you just simply don't know it, but the more you do it, the more the words come to you. You just have to trust. You can't like beat yourself up the third time you've been through a monologue because you've only gone through it 3 times. And what helps me, like the literal thing I would do was like tick marks, and like I would keep track. I had like habit trackers, so I was like every day I have to play guitar for this amount of time. I had like metronome, my metronome beats per minute, like established so that, I mean, I had to play these songs so slow just to get my hands around like to get my thumb and my ring finger to pluck at the same time, like took 2 days. And I did not feel like I had that time, but once it was able to do that, I was in better shape. But what I had to do was go so slow and be so patient with myself at like 40 beats per minute. And I have videos of it. I should probably post it because I think it's just, I don't know, hilarious how slow it was. And then it was just so satisfying once I got the beats per minute up to 100. Like, I remember I was playing Don't Think Twice in my house, and I just started, I was playing it, it was comfortable. I started like kind of rushing a little bit, and I looked at the beats per minute and I was like, oh my God, this is faster than I have to play the song in the movie. And I just started crying because I was like, oh my God, I can do this now. But that took months, and in all those months I was like, I'm never gonna get there, there's no way. I guess you can trust in acting that like they will frame out your hands if they need to. At the end of the day, like they need you to look good at what you do just as much as you do. But yeah, just like every day making sure I did the thing.
A couple last things. So when I first met you a couple years ago with the Top Gun guys, I did a whole chat with like 8 of you, and it was like 7 guys and you.
Was that also was that the SAG one?
It was I think it was SAG at the Paramount. No, it was like an all guild. I don't know, but it was all of you.
Yeah.
And anyway, but just now as we were walking down the hallway about to come into the theater, we saw a big old poster for the movie Riff Raff starring Lewis Pullman.
Yeah, Lewis Pullman's face like the size of my body. Yeah. Like, hi.
And I even saw a photo of Tom Cruise, who kind of surprised everybody by coming to a screening of the film in London, where he lives now. Like, what has the response been? Because all the Top Gun people are so tight. What has it been like for you to hear the excitement surrounding this from all of them?
It's the best. I mean, that's a fun one where like we really all are good friends and we support each other so much, and it's been just really thrilling to see everyone's journey. I mean, Glenn Powell has popped off. He was supposed to come that day that I invited Tom and I invited Glenn to like see a screening, and Glenn was like, I'm telling you, I was like harnessed, I was up in the air, yelling down to my AD like, do you think I'm gonna make it on time? He's like, I don't think so, man. But it's just like, that's the coolest thing ever. And I'm just so proud of everyone. Danny's Captain America movie is about to come out, Blue's Marvel movie is about to come out, and whatever billboard we just passed that I had not heard of.
Riff Raff.
Riff Raff is about to come out. See it. And yeah, I mean, they were so, they congratulated me when the nomination came through, and we were all talking too about like the fires and everything, because Miles' house didn't make it, and it's a very supportive, loving group. It's great. So it is great when you can like have that friendship, but and everyone's doing so well.
Everyone's doing well. Last thing, I mean, listen, you're now an Oscar nominee because of this performance, which is so exciting. Because this movie was the last one that everyone saw, right? It came out like right under the wire. You just wrapped like in June of last year. I mean, it was like boom. So, you know, you kind of came in at the last minute and got that SAG nomination, got the Oscar nomination. But beyond all that, in as much as you can look back at this whole experience, which is still pretty recent, what about it are you most proud of with what you were able to accomplish? Beats per minute?
Kinda. Truly, like, I mean, I think just like, again, I do feel so lucky to get to do this for a living and to get to overhaul my life and spend all my time learning skills at like playing guitar and singing. And like you just, acting is so special because you have to overcome so many fears to do it, or I do every single day, but I care so much about it. It's like just kind of a non-negotiable. And I feel just very proud of having given it that time. I feel very lucky to have had the privilege of the ability to give it that time because I had worked enough to be able to take that time to train. I don't know. I mean, I think I had like really big shoes to fill with Joan, and then also just the most incredible cast to work alongside. And I think I had a lot of insecurities about like my acting background, and I was in another SAG Q&A, and it was like a whole conversation about like, so your TV show background. And I think like I think it's just really interesting in this industry how people throughout a career, you're always going to be like pigeonholed as something. You're a commercial actor, or oh, you do TV, or oh, it's constant. And when you're an actor and you aren't working, it's like as though it's this sort of embarrassing profession or something, and that just like drives me absolutely insane. And so I'm like proud that I guess I was able to like put that aside and do the job and show up and surprise people who maybe had that judgment, and surprise myself with beats per minute. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's like why the SAG nomination, I mean, it was my first nomination of all of this, but it was also like actually the more emotional one, just because I think like, I don't know, we get each other, and like we know how hard it is, and as everyone says, like this is a group of your peers. And so I feel like, well, I was like, oh yeah, it's a SAG panel. Oh, okay, relax. It just, that's the coolest thing ever, to be supported by your peers, and so I'm just really proud of that.
I'm super excited for you. Thank you so much for being here. Monica Barbaro, everybody. I'm so glad you all liked the movie. Have a great night.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
We're waiting for her.
she was probably.
That's quite a case. Light built into the. No, I'll take it. I'll take all the. Yeah, no, of course. Oh my God, thank I mean, I sang her the audition like a step down because I couldn't sing that high then, but I immediately okay, he was confident, even if I wasn't. Because some kind of person really within the room. Yeah, I mean, they heard me sing, and I guess they saw. I think there was something in my contract that was like, if she can't get this, we'll have to double the voice, and I was like, trying to get that.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did meet Glenn. Great.
Oh, cool.
Great. I met Tom years ago.
Oh, yeah?
And I told him more. Dre life will change. I'm up
I'm
for
sure it
this
will.
right now.
I'm
I'm serious.
sure it will.
Oh, you go by. Yeah, you go by. Yeah, no worries.
Gosh, you're seeing me.
Take care.
Thank you.
She's such a great actress. Really, really good. Come on.
I like the countdown and all.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Have me in front for the picture.
You did? Okay, I'm gonna go with the rest of you. I think it's.
I did have fun here.